Okay, what's up? You talking back on the video, and in today's lesson, we are going to be going into the historical evidence that Osiris and Isis were real life human beings. They were real. Or Osiris and Oset were real life human beings. Okay? We're going to prove it. We've been trained to believe that they were mythological people. That's bullshit. They've been lying to us. They've been lying this whole time. Talking about these are mythological people. Bullshit. These people is real. Okay, so to set the foundation, the only reason that we know about Abraham Lincoln is because we read about him in the book. We read about Abraham Lincoln in the book in school, and they say he was our president of the United States, and then they make a monument of this dude, an idol, if you want to call it that. Nothing but like a picture in olden times, in stone, just like how they did in Egypt, and they made a monument of this dude, right? So we say, oh, who is that? We say, oh, that's Abraham Lincoln. How do you know that? You never met him. You wasn't born back then. In the 1600s when this dude lived, you wasn't there. But automatically in our brain, we say, oh, that's Abraham Lincoln. He was real. Never met him a day in our lives. But when it comes down to our ancestors, like with Osiris and Isis and Horus or Set, Osiris and Haru, or the pharaohs, and we see these images, we say, oh, those are mythological people. It's called reverse psychology. Now, all of this is going to tie into, that's why I keep on stressing the issue with the second N word, with NGR, because when Herodotus went to Egypt, he said he came up amongst the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, and the Colchians. Okay? He never said he came across any Hebrews because they were not in existence in that particular time frame. Okay? Because if they were, Herodotus would have said it. He never said it. Right? So, to set the foundation, let's listen to this brother Ray Higgins real quick. I know a lot of you gonna say, "Oh, he's an agent." I'm not here to say he's an agent. I ain't got nothing to do with that. I'm listening to the information. Now listen to this.
What was up, you know? And he said about what, brother? I said you said something about Horus, and I thought he was saying HORACE. Never heard of Horus, HORUS.
Because if the Egyptians are supposed to be bad people, why is everybody coming from different parts of the earth to come learn from these people? Why is that? Why would so-called God tell Abraham to leave Mesopotamia and go into the land of Canaan and go into Egypt to live there amongst these so-called bad people, and living amongst these people for 430 years? So you living amongst some people that's supposed to be so-called bad, and these people is clothing you and feeding you, and if you are living amongst these people for all this time, you're gonna have sex with them. Okay? Well, let's keep on going.
And I told him, Satan, the Lord rebuke you. The blood of Jesus is against you. You're an evil one. You come to hinder, but God bind you in the name of Jesus. And not only did I blast this brother, I blasted all of the brothers that were present in the room, because I felt all of was coming out of City Hall in Patterson, New Jersey, and there was this old bookstore there called Bazaar Books. And I grew up looking at this store, passed it thousands of times, never moved to go in it. But this particular day, I was moved to go in this store, and I did. And when I stepped inside, I said to the brother, I said, man, listen, where's your religion and philosophy section? So he pointed me to it, and I went there, and the books were just in a pile. It was a used bookstore. And as I began to go through the pile, I came upon this book called Osiris and the Egyptian Resurrection. Now, what's deep about this is, when I saw Egyptian resurrection, I said, what the hell is this? What kind of resurrection is Egyptian resurrection? The only resurrection I had ever heard about in my life was the resurrection of Jesus Christ and the resurrection of me and everybody else who believed on him. And I was looking forward to that resurrection so I could be caught up. I opened the cover of this book, and here's what it said.
Okay, so our main focus, the topic of discussion today is, was Osiris was Osiris and was he a historical figure or was he mythological? And we're going to prove, based on the evidence was presented in this man's book, King Abydos, that without a shadow of a doubt that Osiris and Isis were real life people. So let's go into it. African origin of civilization. Let's go. I'm about to make two parts of this because it's going to be deep. Get your pen and paper. Take notes. Because we've all been trained we've all been trained to believe that the Egyptians are bad people. Because the Bible said it. So let's go. So, chapter 1. What were the Egyptians? In contemporary descriptions of the ancient Egyptians, this question is never raised. Eyewitnesses of that period formally affirmed that the Egyptians were blacks. On several occasions, Herodotus insists on the Negro character of the Egyptians and even uses this for indirect demonstrations. Okay, let's drop down here. It says here that to show that the inhabitants of the Colchis were of Egyptian origin and had to be considered a part of the Sesirash army who had settled in that region, Herodotus says, quote, the Egyptians said that they believed the Colchians to be the descendants of the Sesirash army. The Sesirash army. He says, my own conjectures were founded, first, on the fact that they are black-skinned and have woolly hair. It says, finally, concerning the population of India, Herodotus distinguishes between the Pandians and other Indians, describing them as follows, quote, they all have the same tint of skin, which approaches that of the Ethiopians. Diodorus of Sicily says, quote, the Ethiopians say that the Egyptians are one of their colonies, which was brought into Egypt by Osiris. You see that? They even allege that this country was originally underwater, but that the Nile, dragging much mud as it flowed from Ethiopia, had finally filled it in and made it a part of the continent. They add that from them, as from their authors and ancestors, the Egyptians gets most of their laws. You see that? Okay. Now let's keep on going. So now, we're going to go over here, because it's a lot to cover. We're going to go over here, okay? And we're going to look at some of these pictures. Right? So here is Osiris. The god Osiris, or Osir, right? They made a statue of this dude. And they say, oh, he's mythological. He's not real. Okay? So they say he's not real. Okay? Osiris, Isis, and Horus, or Osiris, Set, and Heru. And then you have here Narmer, or Menes, right? Typical Negro, first pharaoh of Egypt, who unified Upper and Lower Egypt for the first time. Okay? He is assuredly neither Aryan, Indo-European, or nor Semitic, but unquestionably black. Right here, you have a proto-historical figure of Lord Terra Neter of Negroes, of the Negro Anu race. Now remember, the Anu is short for Anunnakis. The Anunnakis, in here he talks about them, the Anu, the Anunnakis. They were black people. Let's keep on going. You have more images. You have Cheops, 4th dynasty pharaoh, builder of the Great Pyramid, a black man resembling the present-day Cameroonian type. Right? This is Khufu. Right? Was he mythological? You have here Zolger, a typical Negro, this pharaoh of the 3rd dynasty. He erected the large architecture in huge stone, the step pyramid, and tomb of Saqqara. With him, all the technological elements of Egyptian civilization were already in place and will be perpetuated from then on. Let's keep on going. This is in the Metropolitan Museum of Arts. You have here Mycerinus, 4th dynasty, who built the third Giza pyramid. Next to him, the goddess Hathor. Right? You have right here Pharaoh Mentuhotep. He's a Negro, 11th dynasty, 2100 BC. I guess all these people is fake, huh? You have here the 12th dynasty, the pharaoh Xerxes, right? You have here, they're doing a comparison. This is the pharaoh Ramses II and a modern Watusi. It says the Watusi hairdo can be conceived only for woolly hair. The small circles on the pharaoh's helmet represents frizzy hair. Okay? Right here. Let's keep on going. You have here Thutmose III, son of a Sudanese woman, founded the 18th dynasty. He is sometimes referred to as the Napoleon of antiquity. This is on the front cover of this book. This is the pharaoh Thutmose III. You have here the Sudanese pharaoh Taharqa. Right? I guess all these people is fake. And these are Negroes. But let's keep on going. So, let's go here to we're going to go here to Count Constantine Dembali. Right? It says, after being imbued with all this, is on page 27, after being imbued with all the prejudices we have just mentioned with regard to the Negro, Vanley had gone to Egypt between 1783 and 1785 while Negro slavery flourished. He reported as follows on the Egyptian race, the very race that had produced the pharaohs, the Copts. He says they all have a bloated face, puffed up eyes, flat nose, thick lips, and a word, the true face of the mulatto. He says, I was tempted to attribute it to the climate, but when I visited the Sphinx, its appearance gave me the key to the riddle. On seeing that head, typically Negro in all its features, He says, I remember the remarkable passage where Herodotus says, quote, as for me, I judge the Colchians to be a colony of the Egyptians, because like them, they are black with woolly hair. It says, in other words, the ancient Egyptians were true Negroes of the same type as all native-born Africans. And we're going to get into this word Africans. It says, that being so, we can see how their blood mixed for several centuries with that of the Romans and Greeks must have lost the intensity of its original color, while retaining nonetheless the imprint of its original mold. We can even state as a general principle that the face is a kind of monument able, in many cases, to attest or shed light on historical evidence on the origin of the peoples. After illustrating this proposition by citing the case of Normans, who still resemble the Danes 900 years after the conquest of Normandy, finally adds, quote, but returning to Egypt, the lesson she teaches, history contains many reflections for philosophy. It says, what a subject for meditation to see the present barbarism and ignorance of the Copts, descendants of the alliance between the profound genius of the Egyptians and the brilliant mind of the Greeks. Just think that this race of black men, today our slave and the object of our scorn, is the very race to which we owe our the very race that we owe our arts, sciences, and even the use of speech. You see that? Let's keep on going. Here's Egyptian women on this. They're making perfume. Here's the Attilian. 40 armed Sudanese men going into battle. Right? Let's keep on going. Okay. I just want to touch upon a couple of things. So here, you have here that on page 46, it says, let us start with the oldest of these theses, that of Champollion the Younger, sent forth in the 13th letter to his brother. It concerns the bas reliefs on the tomb of Osiris the First, also visited by Rienzi. It says these date back to the 16th century, 18th dynasty, that represents the races of man known to the Egyptians. This monument is the oldest complete ethnological document available. Here's what Champollion says about it. Now, Champollion is the Tamil, who was a white man who used the Rosetta Stone to decipher some of the hieroglyphics. Let's keep on going. He says, right in the valley of Benban el Maluk, we admired, like all previous visitors, the astonishing freshness of the paintings and the fine sculptures on several tombs. He says, I had a copy made of the peoples represented on the bas reliefs. He says, at first I had thought from copies of these bas reliefs published in England that these people of different races led by the god Horus, holding his shepherd staff, were indeed nations subject to the rule of the pharaohs. A study of the legend informed me that this tableau has a more general meaning. It portrays the third hour of the day, and when the sun is beginning to turn on its burning rays, warming all the inhabited countries of our hemisphere. Now let's drop down here. It says, according to the legend itself, they wish to represent the inhabitants of Egypt and those of foreign lands. Thus, we have before our eyes the image of the various races of man known to the Egyptians, and we learn at the same time that the great geographical or ethnographical divisions established during that earlier epoch. says, men led by Horus, the shepherd of the peoples, belong to 4 distinct families. The first, the one closest to the god, has a dark red color, a well-proportioned body, kind face, nose slightly aquiline, long braided hair, and is dressed in white. The legend designates this species as the Rot-in-Ni Romi, the Rot-in-Ni Romi, the race of men par excellence, i.e. the Egyptians. There can be no uncertainty about the racial identity of the man who comes next. He belongs to the black race, designated under the general term Nahasi. The third presents a very different aspect. His skin color borders on yellow or tan. He has a strongly alkaline nose, thick black pointed beard, and wears a short garment of varied colors. These are called the Namui. The Namuyu. It says, finally, he says the last one is what we call flesh colored. A white skin of the most delicate shade. A nose straight or slightly arched. Blue eyes, blonde or reddish beard. Tall stature and very slender. Clad in a hairy ox skin and a veritable savage tattoo on various parts of his body. He is called Tamahu. You see that? Are you hearing this? Okay? Now, so the Egyptians called white people the Tamahu. Okay? Now, what I want to do is I want to go here, because they get a hold of Champollion text and they alter the text. You know what I'm saying? If you read this book, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? Now, we're gonna go over here. I'm gonna go over here and let's see. Okay. So like here on page 71. On page 71, it says here that before continuing with Maspero's thesis, we should note what seems already to have been altered in those few introductory sentences. It is unlikely that the Egyptians ever forgot their origin. Maspero apparently confuses 2 distinct notions: the primitive birthplace from which a people started and the ethnic origin responsible for the color of the race. The Egyptians never forgot the latter, any more than they forgot the former. It is expressed in all their art, throughout all their literature, in all their cultural manifestations, and in their traditions and language. So much so that even their country was designated by analogy with their own color, not by analogy with the color of the soil, by the name Kemet, which coincides with Ham or Kam, biblical ancestor of blacks. To say that Kemet refers to the color of the Egyptians' earth rather than designating the country through the color of the race could inspire similar reasoning to explain the present-day expressions Black Africa and White Africa. Maspero's reference to the unanimous testimony of ancient historians on the Egyptian race, but he intentionally omits their precision. He says, what we already know about the testimony of the ancients prove that they did not use the vague term, quote, African race. From Herodotus to Diodorus, whom Maspero quotes, it says, whenever they mention Egyptian people, they specify that a Negro race was involved. You see that? So they never called them They never called them Africans. Okay? Like here. It says, quote, on page 72, quote, moreover, the Bible states that Mizraim, son of Ham, brother of Cush and of Canaan, came from Mesopotamia to settle along with his children on the banks of the Nile. Maspero fails to add that Ham, Canaan, and Cush are Negroes, according to that same Bible he is quoting. This means that once again that Egypt, Ham, Mizraim, Ethiopia, Cush, Palestine, and Phoenicia before the Jews and Syrians, Arabia Felix before the Arabs, were all occupied by Negroes who had created civilizations thousands of years old in those regions and had maintained family relationships. You see that? So before there was anything called a Hebrew or a Jew, there were Negroes. So when Herodotus went to Egypt, he said he saw Ethiopians and Egyptians, and he said they looked like the same damn people, because they were. Because before the word Egyptian came on the scene, another word predated it. Another word was already in existence, and that word was this: niggas. They were kings and queens, gods and goddesses. All those other terms came later because of family fights. Trying to get you Negroes to think. You're not thinking. To like when you go on YouTube and you see this dude right here. I know a lot of you are following it. A lot of you are following this dude. Yahuwah's servant, or the Most High servant, he gonna change his name or whatever. And let's see here. I think he changed some shit around now again. He talked about do not follow the ways of the Egyptians. He don't even know who the Egyptians are. Well, anyway, and then a lot of you are following this dude, G-Dash. He just did a video charging you all money. Egyptian versus Hebrews. He said he got a video called Egyptian versus Hebrews. Who are we? He's confused as well. Charging you niggas money. But let's keep on going. So now we're going to get into Osiris. So, we're on page 75. We're on page 75. I want you to listen to what I'm about to read. Take notes. This is about to be deep. It's only about, 3 or 4 pages. Okay, now check this out. Let's see here. Page 75. Okay? And we're going to go here to right here. It says, after Solomon, or a peaceful confirmation of the Negro origin by an author whose intent was to destroy it, we see once again the impossibility proving the opposite of the truth. Gaston Maspero, who became in 1889 the director of the Cairo Museum, was a scholar to whom we are in debt for several translations of the Egyptian text. He had the technical preparations necessary for establishing all that was demonstrable. His failure, despite that knowledge, like the failure of scholars who tackled this problem before or after him, constitutes, as it were, the most solid, if unintentional, proof of the Negro origin. Listen to this. Next, we come to the thesis of Amalio, 1850 to 1916, a great Egyptologist seldom mentioned. It says that he excavated at the El Gaab near Abydos and discovered a royal necropolis where he was able to identify the names of 16 kings, more ancient perhaps than Menes. Or who was Menes? Menes is this dude right here. Menes is this dude. He's talking about Narmer. Right? They can't even date Narmer or Menes, right? We go back to page 25. And it says here that he found tombs of 4 kings, Ka, Den, the serpent king, the Jet, whose stela is at the Louvre Museum, and another whose name has not been deciphered. As Amaliu reports, attempts have been made to include these monarchs in the historical period. It says, at the meeting of the Academy of Inscriptions at Belles Lettres, Mr. Maspero tried to place these kings in the 12th dynasty. Then he attributed them to the 18th. Then next to the 5th. And then he tried to do it to the 4th. After refuting his detractors, Emiliano concludes, quote, those are reasons which seem to me not to deserve scorn, but rather to merit serious consideration by scholars of good will, for the others do not count in my opinion. Listen to this. To Emiliano, sorry for me butchering his name, it says, we owe the discovery of Osiris's tomb at Abydos, or Osiris. Listen to this. Thanks to which Osiris could no longer be considered a mythical hero. Listen to this. Let me listen to this. It says, thanks to which Osiris could no longer be considered a mythical hero, but a historic personage, an initial ancestor of the pharaohs, a black ancestor, as was his sister Isis. You see that? So now they're saying that Osiris or Osar is a historical person. He's not mythological. It says, thus, we can understand why the Egyptians always painted their gods black as coal in the image of their race, from the beginning to the end of their history. It would be paradoxical and quite incomprehensible for a white people never to have painted its gods white, but to choose on the contrary to depict its most sacred beings in the black color of Isis and Osiris on Egyptian monuments. This fact reveals one of the contradictions of the moderns who assert dogmatically that the white race or the Tamahu created Egyptian civilization with an enslaved black race living by its side. The choice of the slave's color rather than that of the masters and civilizers to represent the deities is, to say the least, inadmissible and should shock a logical, objective mind. It says, it is that Emilio, after his tremendous finds and his in-depth study of Egyptian society, reached the following conclusion of major importance for the history of mankind. It says, from the various Egyptian legends, he says, I have been able to conclude that the population settled in the Nile Valley were Negroes, since the goddess Isis was said to have been a reddish black woman. In other words, as I have explained, her complexion is coffee with milk, the same as that of certain other blacks whose skin seems to cast metallic reflections of copper. Listen to this. Emilio designates the first race to occupy Egypt by the name Anu. He he shows that it came slowly down the Nile and founded the city of Eshna, Ermit, and Heliopolis. For as he says, quote, all those cities have the characteristic symbol which serves to denote the name Anu. It is also in an ethnic sense that we must read the term Anu applied to Osiris. As a matter of fact, in the chapter introducing hymns in honor of Ra, and containing chapter 15 of the Book of the Dead, we read, "Hail thee, O God Ani, and the mountains of the hail to thee, God, hail to thee, O God Ani, in the mountainous land of Antim, O great God, falcon of the double solar mountain." It says, if Osiris was of Nubian origin, although born of Thebes, it would be easy to understand why the struggle between Set and Horus took place in Nubia. In any case, it is striking that the goddess Isis, according to the legend, has precisely the same skin color that Nubians always have, and that the god Osiris has what seems to me an ethnic indicating his Nubian origin. Apparently, this observation has never been made. You see that? If we accept the evidence of their own creations, the Book of the Dead among others, these Anu, whom Maspero tried to transform into Arabs, appear essentially as blacks. In support of Emilio's theory, it may be pointed out that An means man. Thus, Anu originally may have meant men. Okay, now let's keep on going. According to Emilios, this black race, the Anu, probably created in prehistoric times all the elements of Egyptian civilization which persist without significant change throughout its long existence. These blacks were probably the first to practice agriculture, to irrigate the valley of the Nile, build dams, invent sciences, arts writing, and the calendar. That's dealing with time. They created the cosmogony. Dealing with the cosmos, contained in the Book of the Dead text, which we leave no doubt about the Negro-ness of the race that conceived the ideas. These Anu were an agricultural people raising cattle on the large scale of the Nile, shutting themselves up in walled cities for defense purposes. To this people, we can attribute, without fear of error, the most ancient Egyptian books, the Book of the Dead, and the text of the pyramids, or the pyramid text. Consequently, all the myths or religious teachings, he says, I would add almost all the philosophical systems then known and still called Egyptians. They evidently knew the crafts necessary for any civilization and were familiar with the tools those traded to require. Now, let's drop down here. Let's see here. Where is this part at? Okay. One second. Okay. About to make a part two to this, I will. Okay. Now I'm looking for something. I can't find it. Okay, let me see something. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm on the wrong page. Okay, so here we go. Okay, let's get into this. All right. Okay. Now, we're on page 89. right? And it says here that let's see. Okay. It says 89. What precisely are we taught about? What precisely are we taught by Egyptian traditions? If we consider it from the most ancient epic to which one can refer, this tradition expressed in the Book of the Dead, whose doctrine is earlier than any written history of Egypt, teaches us that Isis is a Negro woman, Osiris a Negro man, a Anu, or meaning a god. Thus, in the oldest Egyptian text, his name is accompanied by an ethnic designation to indicate his Nubian origin. This we have known since that author, the guy who excavated the tomb. Emilio informs us, moreover, that no Egyptian text lists Osiris and Isis as having been born in the Delta. Consequently, when Moret affirms this, he does not draw it from any document. We may even add that the legend pinpoints to the birth of Osiris and Isis in Upper Egypt. Osiris born at Thebes and Isis born at Dendera. The legend also places in Nubia the first site of the struggle between Set and Horus. Now, let's drop down here, right? And it says here that in Emilio's opinion, he's talking about all this stuff, right? I don't have enough time. I'm about to make a part 2 to this. He's talking about all this stuff, right? And this I can read it. It says, the part of the legend which relates to the Delta has obviously been added to the original version, except for the sojourn of Isis in Butu. In fact, the episode of Isis in Byblos hardly fits in with the state of this goddess in Butu. He said, in my view, it is merely an interpretation of the Greek or quasi-Greek origin to explain the adoption of the Osiris cult in Byblos, or rather the myths resembling some local deity. This, moreover, is one of the points to which Egyptian documents never refer. Likewise, the coffin of Osiris brought by the Nile to the sea, and from the sea to Byblos, seemed to me to be the one of the most obvious impossibilities. He says, I doubt seriously that the Egyptians accepted it, because Egyptian documents never mention it. Now let's drop down. It says, similarly, if Osiris and Isis were born in Lower Egypt, it would be hard to understand how their relics were all apportionated by Upper Egypt. It said, listen to this, the whole skeleton of Osiris was taken over by cities in Upper Egypt, so completely that nothing was left for the town of Lower Egypt. On this point, Emilio refers to Brock's geographical dictionary. Rivalry between the cities over the attribution of the relics caused so much confusion that at first it was difficult to determine which city possessed such and such a relic now claimed by several other towns. Now let's drop down here. He says that Emilio suggests it to be decided generally in favor of Upper Egypt whenever this rivalry opposes cities of Lower and Upper Egypt. He says, quote, I believe that one fact tilts the scales in favor of Upper Egypt. The attribution of Osiris's head to Upper Egypt to the city of Abydos. It says, the fact would not be important if Emilio had not discovered the tomb of Osiris and the head of the divine ancestor in a jar. What? Wait a minute. What? Do you hear what this dude just said? He said he found this dude's tomb and they found his head in a jar. He says, we may doubt the authenticity of that discovery. Nevertheless, Emilio writes, quote, I myself have found other shrines during the preliminary excavations, which culminated in the royal necropolis before unearthing the shrine where the skull of the god I believe I had found was preserved. They found this dude, man. This dude wasn't fake. This dude was real. He was real. This dude wasn't fake. He goes and say that he then refers to the papyrus in the museum cited by Bursk. It expressly states that the god's head was preserved at Abydos in a place designated on the papyrus by a name signifying the necropolis of Abydos. Emilio sought confirmation from Eugene Rebulat on the validity of this document written in Demotic. He received confirmation that the head of Osiris was indeed mentioned as being located at Abydos. Further assurance or further confirmation came in 1898 in the geographical text on Edfu and Burke's dictionary. Quote, it is stated there that the god's head was in the Abydos regularly. But Emilio observes, he says, quote, since Burns copied it, the text has disappeared. If one can believe the publication on the Edfu temple begun in the memoirs of the Cairo mission, it would be interesting to ascertain whether that inscription has completely disappeared. You see that? Finally, Emilio records another important fact. It says, in the text of the pyramids, Osiris' throne is described just as Emilio's, quote, found it in the funeral bed placed in the tomb at Abydos. Quite justifiably, Emilio wonders, quote, why would the cities of Upper Egypt have claimed the most important parts of Osiris' body if he was born in the Delta, reigned in the Delta, reigned in the Delta, died in the Delta, and had been the local god of a tiny district in the Delta? It says, I see no reason for it. It says, whether or not Emilio really discovered the tomb and head of Osiris is unimportant. The essential fact is that the text states that these are to be found at Abydos. Thus, contrary to Moret's affirmation, authentic Egyptian tradition as old as recorded time and written into the text of the pyramids and the Book of the Dead teaches us in unequivocal terms that the Egyptian deities belonged to the black race and were born in the south. It says, listen to this, furthermore, the myth of Osiris and Isis points out a cultural trait characteristics of black Africa, the cult or the culture of ancestors, the foundation of Negro religious life, and of Egyptian religious life, just as Emilio reports. You see that? Each dead ancestor becomes the object of a cult. There must be more forebearers whose teachings in the realm of social life, that is to say, in the realm of civilization, have proved effective, gradually become veritable gods. They are totally detached from the human level, which does not mean, it says, listen to this, it says, they are totally detached from the human level, which does not mean they never existed. Transformed into gods, they are placed on a plane different from that of the Greek hero. This is what made Herodotus think that the Egyptians had no heroes. Now, you have just heard out of this white man's mouth that Osiris was real. Osiris, they found this dude's body. They found his body. I'm not making this shit up. They found him. They found this dude. Osiris, Osar, Aset, Haru, they were real people. They were Negroes. And if you read the book Black Root Science, where did they come from? The the star of Sirius. They say Sirius, but it's Osiris. And wait till you see another book that I bring out. When I bring out this other information, it's entitled. It's entitled. Let's see. What is it called? The sealed portion. This book right here, I just bought this book. The sealed portion, the final testament of Jesus Christ, right? Wait until you see what I bring on this book. How it talks about the stars, what the stars really are. We've been trained and taught to believe this one thing, but it's really another. So, for all of you who was saying that Osiris, Horus, and Isis were mythological people, if you are on here saying this on YouTube, and you have not done your due diligence research, and you talking shit about the Egyptians, saying that they are bad people, and you only using one book to solidify your claims, you a goddamn fool. Talking shit about our ancestors. These people are real life people. So, you have Osiris, Isis, and Horus. So, Osiris is your first resurrected Christ. He's the first. So, if we want to talk about reincarnation, if Osiris is the first to be resurrected, right? And if you read a book by Kirsty Graves called 25 Crucified Saviors, they say that Jesus Christ is the last. Right? That's what they say. And we know that Jesus was a Negro. We know that Osar is a Negro. So, who would Jesus be? Historically speaking, in resurrected form, who would Jesus be? He would be Osiris, Osar. That's who that is. So all those saviors that's in these different so-called religions, or in these different ethnic traditional groups, talk about all these different saviors with Mithras, Krishnas, Quetzalcoatl. All of those saviors are so-called a reincarnation form of Osiris, the first. And we've been trained to believe that these people were fake. When we see this, when we see this, it says Osiris, a god of fertility, the afterlife, the dead, resurrection, life, and vegetation in ancient Egyptian religion. He was classically depicted as a green-skinned deity. Now, click on images. So when you see stuff like this, right, they paint him as green, all type of shit or whatever, and then they got him like this on the walls in Egypt. He's black, okay? This dude was real. He was real. I just read it to you. I just read it. Osiris, Isis, and Horus, or Osiris, Set, and Heru, were real life people. You don't build tombs. You don't make tombs for fake people. That's bullshit. Because I can say the same thing about Abraham Lincoln. I don't know this dude. Who the fuck is this? You know what I'm saying? Somebody can say the same thing about Osiris. Oh, you don't know about, the only reason you know about Osiris because you read about it in the book. The same thing about Abraham Lincoln. You never met Abraham Lincoln. And Osiris predates Abraham Lincoln as by thousands of years. Now, how are you going to debunk this? You can't. You cannot. It's no way in the world you can debunk. No way in the world you can debunk this. Even the conscious community says that Osiris and Horus were mythological. Even this dude right here, Ray Hagen. when he talked about Osiris, what the Egyptian book did, he said that Osiris was fake, but he was real. You can listen to the clip yourself.
Anyone who has your Bible, please turn to 1 Corinthians 15, verses 50 through 55. All right? I have Minister Mitchell. She's going to help read these passages for you. But I want you to see it in your Bible if you have it. When I open the inside cover of this book, here's what it said. And you see it here on the screen. It said, the central figure of the ancient Egyptian religion was Osiris. And the chief fundamentals of his cult were the belief in his divinity, death, resurrection, and absolute control of the destinies of the bodies and souls of men. I'm already messed up. The central point of each Osiris religion was his hope of resurrection. Y'all see it? His hope of resurrection in a transformed body and of immortality, which can only be realized by him.
Now let me pause it right here. And let's go here to Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5 to show you that you are God. You are immortal. So it says, Jeremiah is talking to God, right? So-called God. And God tells Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born. Now, wait a minute. Stop. How does God know Jeremiah before he's even born in the womb? No man and woman has come together to make Jeremiah in a physical form. So how does God know him before he's in the womb? Unless Jeremiah is already in existence before a physical body. Answer that. Now, let's go here to Bible Hub, to the concordance, right? And we're going to click on the Hebrew, Strong's. And we want to go here to the word for womb. What is womb? So I got 3 minutes left. Womb. Let's see here. Womb. Okay. It got the stomach and then things of that nature. Let's go back. Let's see. I'm trying to hurry up. Fall upon you in the womb. You got the womb and you got the let's see here. He said, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Right? So the womb and for the woman is a matrix. It's a portal. Okay? It's a portal. That's what that is. You can look it up for yourself. Let's see here. I got 2 minutes left. I can hurry up. So belly, womb, okay, it comes out to the matrix, right? It's a portal. So God tells Jeremiah, before I formed you in the belly of the womb, I knew you. So where's Jeremiah at? He's in another dimension. So he left the dimension that so-called God is in, and left that portal. And came through the woman's womb, the matrix, into this portal, into this dimension. You niggas better wake up. That's why I keep on telling you, if you want information free of charge, come to my channel. With that being said, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.